Chapter 20. "Well, dear Monsieur Schmucke, and how is our dear adored patient?" asked La Cibot as she came into the room. "Very bad. Bons have been wandering all der night." "Then what did he say?" "Just nonsense. He would that I have all his fortune, on condition that I sell noddings. Then he cried. Poor man, it made me ver sad." "Never mind, honey," returned the portress. "I have kept you waiting for your breakfast. It is 9 o'clock and past, but don't scold me. I have business on hand, you see, business of yours. Here are we without any money, and I have been out to get some." "Where?" asked Schmucke. "Of my uncle." "Uncle?" "Up the spout." "Spout?" "Oh, the dear man, how simple he is! No, you are a saint, a love, an archbishop of innocence, a man that ought to be stuffed, as the old actor said. What, you have lived in Paris for 29 years? You saw the Revolution of July, you did, and you have never so much as heard tell of a pawnbroker, a man that lends you money on your things? I have been pawning our silver spoons and forks, 8 of them, thread pattern. Pooh! Cibot can eat his victuals with German silver. It is quite the fashion now, they say. It is not worth the while to say anything to our angel there. It would upset him and make him yellower than before, and he is quite cross enough as it is. Let us get him round again first, and afterwards we shall see. What must be must, and we must take things as we find them, eh?" "Good woman, noble heart!" cried poor Schmucke, with a great tenderness in his face. He took La Cibot's hand and clasped it to his breast. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. "There, that will do, Papa Schmucke. How funny you are! This is too bad. I am an old daughter of the people. My heart is in my hand. I have something here, you see, like you have. Hearts of gold that you are," she added, slapping her chest. "Baba Schmucke," continued the musician. "No, to know the depths of sorrow, to cry mit tears of blood, to mount up in der heaven, dat is mein lot. I shall not live after Bons." "Gracious, I am sure you won't. You're killing yourself. Listen, pet." "Bet?" "Very well. My sonny." "Sonny?" "My lamb, then, if you like it better." "It is not more clear." "Oh, well, let me take care of you and tell you what to do, for if you go on like this, I shall have both of you laid up on my hands, you see. To my little way of thinking, we must do the work between us. You cannot go about Paris to give lessons, for it tires you, and then you are not fit to do anything afterwards, and somebody must sit up of a night with Monsieur Pons, now that he is getting worse and worse. I will run round to-day to all your pupils and tell them that you are ill. Is it not so? And then you can spend the nights with our lamb, and sleep of a morning from 5 o'clock till, let us say, 2 in the afternoon. I myself will take the day, the most tiring part, for there is your breakfast and dinner to get ready, and the bed to make, and the things to change, and the doses of medicine to give. I could not hold out for another 10 days at this rate. What would become of you if I were to fall ill? And you yourself, it makes one shudder to see you. Just look at yourself, after sitting up with him last night." She drew Schmucke to the glass, and Schmucke thought that there was a great change. "So, if you are of my mind, I'll have your breakfast ready in a jiffy. Then you will look after our poor dear again till 2 o'clock. Let me have a list of your people, and I will soon arrange it. You will be free for a fortnight. You can go to bed when I come in, and sleep till night." So prudent did the proposition seem that Schmucke then and there agreed to it. Not a word to Monsieur Pons. He would think it was all over with him, you know, if we were to tell him in this way that his engagement at the theatre and his lessons were put off. He would be thinking that he should not find his pupils again, poor gentleman. Stuff and nonsense. Monsieur Poulain says that we shall save our Benjamin if we keep him as quiet as possible. "Ach, very good. Bring up der breakfast. I shall make the bet, and give you die addresses. You are right. It would be too much for me." An hour later, La Cibot, in her Sunday clothes, departed in great state, to the no small astonishment of the Remonencqs. She promised herself that she would support the character of confidential servant of the pair of nutcrackers in the boarding schools and private families in which they gave music lessons. It is needless to repeat all the gossip in which La Cibot indulged on her round. The members of every family, the headmistress of every boarding school, were treated to a variation upon the theme of Pons' illness. A single scene, which took place in the illustrious Gaudissart's private room, will give a sufficient idea of the rest. La Cibot met with unheard-of difficulties, but she succeeded in penetrating at last to the presence. Kings and cabinet ministers are less difficult of access than the manager of a theatre in Paris, nor is it hard to understand why such prodigious barriers are raised between them and ordinary mortals. A king has only to defend himself from ambition. The manager of a theatre has reason to dread the wounded vanity of actors and authors. La Cibot, however, struck up an acquaintance with the portress, and traversed all distances in a brief space. There is a sort of freemasonry among the porter tribe, and indeed among the members of every profession, for each calling has its shibboleth, as well as its insulting epithet and the mark with which it brands its followers. "Ah, madame, you are the portress here," began La Cibot. "I myself am a portress, in a small way, in a house in the Rue de Normandie. Monsieur Pons, your conductor, lodges with us. Oh, how glad I should be to have your place, and see the actors and dancers and authors go past. It is the marshal's baton in our profession, as the old actor said." "And how is Monsieur Pons going on, good man?" inquired the portress. "He is not going on at all. He has not left his bed these 2 months. He will only leave the house feet foremost, that is certain." "He will be missed." "Yes. I have come with a message to the manager from him. Just try to get me a word with him, dear." "A lady from Monsieur Pons to see you, sir." After this fashion did the youth attached to the service of the manager's office announce La Cibot, whom the portress below had particularly recommended to his care. Gaudissart had just come in for a rehearsal. Chance so ordered it that no one wished to speak with him. Actors and authors were alike late. Delighted to have news of his conductor, he made a Napoleonic gesture, and La Cibot was admitted. The sometime commercial traveller, now the head of a popular theatre, regarded his sleeping partners in the light of a legitimate wife. They were not informed of all his doings. The flourishing state of his finances had reacted upon his person, grown big and stout and high-coloured with good cheer and prosperity. Gaudissart made no disguise of his transformation into a Mondor. "We are turning into a city father," he once said, trying to be the first to laugh. "You are only in the tour carré stage yet, though," retorted Bixiou, who often replaced Gaudissart in the company of the leading lady of the ballet, the celebrated Héloïse Brisetout. The former illustrious Gaudissart, in fact, was exploiting the theatre simply and solely for his own particular benefit, and with brutal disregard of other interests. He first insinuated himself as a collaborator in various ballets, plays, and vaudevilles. Then he waited till the author wanted money, and bought up the other half of the copyright. These afterpieces and vaudevilles, always added to successful plays, brought him in a daily harvest of gold coins. He trafficked by proxy in tickets, allotting a certain number to himself as the manager's share, till he took in this way a tithe of the receipts. And Gaudissart had other methods of making money besides these official contributions. He sold boxes, he took presents from indifferent actresses, burning to go upon the stage to fill small speaking parts, or simply to appear as queens or pages and the like. He swelled his nominal third share of the profits to such purpose that the sleeping partners scarcely received 1/10 instead of the remaining 2/3 of the net receipts. Even so, however, the 10th paid them a dividend of 15% on their capital. On the strength of that 15%, Gaudissart talked of his intelligence, honesty, and zeal, and the good fortune of his partners. When Count Popinot, showing an interest in the concern, asked Matifat or General Gouraud, Matifat's son-in-law, or Crevel, whether they were satisfied with Gaudissart, Gouraud, now a peer of France, answered, "They say he robs us, but he is such a clever, good-natured fellow that we are quite satisfied." "This is like La Fontaine's fable," smiled the ex-cabinet minister. Gaudissart found investments for his capital in other ventures. He thought well of Schwab, Brunner, and the Graffs. That firm was promoting railways. He became a shareholder in the lines. His shrewdness was carefully hidden beneath the frank carelessness of a man of pleasure. He seemed to be interested in nothing but amusements and dress. Yet he thought everything over, and his wide experience of business gained as a commercial traveller stood him in good stead. A self-made man, he did not take himself seriously. He gave suppers and banquets to celebrities in rooms sumptuously furnished by the house decorator. Showy by nature, with a taste for doing things handsomely, he affected an easy-going air, and seemed so much the less formidable because he had kept the slang of the road, to use his own expression, with a few green-room phrases superadded. Now, artists in the theatrical profession are wont to express themselves with some vigor. Gaudissart borrowed sufficient racy green-room talk to blend with his commercial traveller's lively jocularity, and passed for a wit. He was thinking at that moment of selling his license and going into another line, as he said. He thought of being chairman of a railway company, of becoming a responsible person and an administrator, and finally of marrying Mademoiselle Minard, daughter of the richest mayor in Paris. He might hope to get into the Chamber through his line, and with Popinot's influence to take office under the government. "Whom have I the honor of addressing?" inquired Gaudissart, looking magisterially at La Cibot. "I am Monsieur Pons' confidential servant, sir." "Well, and how is the dear fellow?" "Ill, sir, very ill." "The devil he is! I am sorry to hear it. I must come and see him. He is such a man as you don't often find." "Ah, yes, sir, he is a cherub, he is. I have always wondered how he came to be in a theatre." "Why, madame, the theatre is a house of correction for morals," said Gaudissart. "Poor Pons! Upon my word, one ought to cultivate the species to keep up the stock. 'Tis a pattern man, and has talent too. When will he be able to take his orchestra again, do you think? A theatre, unfortunately, is like a stage-coach. Empty or full, it starts at the same time. Here, at 6 o'clock every evening, up goes the curtain, and if we are never so sorry for ourselves, it won't make good music. Let us see now. How is he?" La Cibot pulled out her pocket-handkerchief and held it to her eyes. "It is a terrible thing to say, my dear sir," said she, "but I am afraid we shall lose him, though we are as careful of him as of the apple of our eyes. And at the same time I came to say that you must not count on Monsieur Schmucke, worthy man, for he is going to sit up with him at night. One cannot help doing as if there was hope still left, and trying one's best to snatch the dear good soul from death. But the doctor has given him up." "What is the matter with him?" "He is dying of grief, jaundice, and liver complaint, with a lot of family affairs to complicate matters." "And a doctor as well," said Gaudissart. "He ought to have had Lebrun, our doctor. It would have cost him nothing." "Monsieur Pons' doctor is a providence on earth. But what can a doctor do, no matter how clever he is, with such complications?" "I wanted the good pair of nutcrackers badly for the accompaniment of my new fairy piece." "Is there anything that I can do for them?" asked La Cibot, and her expression would have done credit to a Jocrisse. Gaudissart burst out laughing. "I am their housekeeper, sir, and do many things for my gentlemen." She did not finish her speech, for in the middle of Gaudissart's roar of laughter a woman's voice exclaimed, "If you are laughing, old man, one may come in." and the leading lady of the ballet rushed into the room and flung herself upon the only sofa. The newcomer was Heloise Brisetout, with a splendid Algérienne, such as scarves used to be called, about her shoulders. "Who is amusing you? Is it this lady? What post does she want?" asked this nymph, giving the manager such a glance as artist gives artist, a glance that would make a subject for a picture. Heloise, a young woman of exceedingly literary tastes, was on intimate terms with great and famous artists in Bohemia. Elegant, accomplished, and graceful, she was more intelligent than dancers usually are. As she put her question, she sniffed at a scent bottle full of some aromatic perfume. "One fine woman is as good as another, madame, and if I don't sniff the pestilence out of a scent bottle, nor daub brick dust on my cheeks—" "That would be a sinful waste, child, when nature put it on for you to begin with," said Heloise, with a side glance at her manager. "I am an honest woman." "So much the worse for you. It is not everyone by a long chalk that can find someone to keep them, and kept I am, and in slap-up style, madame." "So much the worse! What do you mean? Oh, you may toss your head and go about in scarves. You will never have as many declarations as I have had, missus. You will never match the belle écaillère of the Cadran Bleu." Heloise Brisetout rose at once to her feet, stood at attention, and made a military salute, like a soldier who meets his general. "What?" asked Gaudissart. "Are you really la belle écaillère of whom my father used to talk?" "In that case the cachucha and the polka were after your time, and madame has passed her 50th year," remarked Heloise, and striking an attitude, she declaimed, "Cinna, let us be friends." "Come, Heloise, the lady is not up to this. Let her alone." "Madame is perhaps the new Heloise," suggested La Cibot, with sly innocence. "Not bad, old lady!" cried Gaudissart. "It is a venerable joke," said the dancer, "a grizzled pun. Find us another old lady, or take a cigarette." "I beg your pardon, madame, I feel too unhappy to answer you. My two gentlemen are very ill, and to buy nourishment for them and to spare them trouble, I have pawned everything down to my husband's clothes that I pledged this morning. Here's the ticket." "Oh, here the affair is becoming tragic," cried the fair Heloise. "What is it all about?" "Madame drops down upon us like—" "Like a dancer," said Heloise. "Let me prompt you, missus." "Come, I am busy," said Gaudissart. "The joke has gone far enough. Heloise, this is Monsieur Pons' confidential servant. She had come to tell me that I must not count upon him. Our poor conductor is not expected to live. I don't know what to do." "Oh, poor man! Why, he must have a benefit." "It would ruin him," said Gaudissart. "He might find next day that he owed 500 francs to charitable institutions, and they refuse to admit that there are any sufferers in Paris except their own. Now, look here, my good woman, since you are going in for the Montyon prize—" He broke off, rang the bell, and the youth before mentioned suddenly appeared. "Tell the cashier to send me up 1,000-franc note. Sit down, madame." "Ah, poor woman, look, she is crying!" exclaimed Heloise. "How stupid! There, there, mother, we will go to see him. Don't cry. I say now," she continued, taking the manager into a corner, "you want to make me take the leading part in the ballet in Ariane, you Turk! You are going to be married, and you know how I can make you miserable. Heloise, my heart is copper-bottomed like a man of war. I shall bring your children on the scene. I will borrow some somewhere. I have owned up about the attachment. Do be nice and give Pons' post to Garangeot. He has talent, poor fellow, and he has not a penny, and I promise peace. But wait till Pons is dead, in case the good man may come back again." "Oh, as to that, no, sir," said La Cibot. "He began to wander in his mind last night, and now he is delirious. It will soon be over, unfortunately." "At any rate, take Garangeot as a stop-gap," pleaded Heloise. "He has the whole press on his side." Just at that moment the cashier came in with a note for 1,000 francs in his hand. "Give it to madame here," said Gaudissart. "Good day, my good woman. Take good care of the dear man, and tell him that I am coming to see him tomorrow, or sometime, as soon as I can, in short." "A drowning man," said Heloise. "Ah, sir, hearts like yours are only found in a theatre. May God bless you." "To what account shall I post this item?" asked the cashier. "I will countersign the order. Post it to the bonus account." Before La Cibot went out, she made Mademoiselle Brisetout a fine curtsy, and heard Gaudissart remark to his mistress, "Can Garangeot do the dance music for the Mohicans in 12 days? If he helps me out of my predicament, he shall have Pons' place." La Cibot had cut off the incomes of the two friends. She had left them without means of subsistence if Pons should chance to recover, and was better rewarded for all this mischief than for any good she had done. In a few days' time her treacherous trick would bring about the desired result. Elie Magus would have his coveted pictures. But if this first spoliation was to be effected, La Cibot must throw dust in Fraisier's eyes, and lull the suspicions of that terrible fellow conspirator of her own seeking. And Elie Magus and Remonencq must be bound over to secrecy. As for Remonencq, he had gradually come to feel such a passion as uneducated people can conceive when they come to Paris from the depths of the country, bringing with them all the fixed ideas bred of the solitary country life, all the ignorance of a primitive nature, all the brute appetites that become so many fixed ideas. Mme. Cibot's masculine beauty, her vivacity, her market woman's wit, had all been remarked by the marine store dealer. He thought at first of taking La Cibot from her husband, bigamy among the lower classes in Paris being much more common than is generally supposed. But greed was like a slip-knot drawn more and more tightly about his heart, till reason at length was stifled. When Remonencq computed that the commission paid by himself and Elie Magus amounted to about 40,000 francs, he determined to have La Cibot for his legitimate spouse, and his thoughts turned from a misdemeanor to a crime. A romantic, purely speculative dream, persistently followed through a tobacco smoker's long musings as he lounged in the doorway, had brought him to the point of wishing that the little tailor were dead. At a stroke he beheld his capital trebled, and then he thought of La Cibot. What a good saleswoman she would be! What a handsome figure she would make in a magnificent shop on the boulevards! The twofold covetousness turned Remonencq's head. In fancy he took a shop that he knew of on the Boulevard de la Madeleine. He stocked it with Pons' treasures, and then, after dreaming his dream in sheets of gold, after seeing millions in the blue spiral wreaths that rose from his pipe, he awoke to find himself face to face with the little tailor. Cibot was sweeping the yard, the doorstep, and the pavement, just as his neighbor was taking down the shutters and displaying his wares. For since Pons fell ill, La Cibot's work had fallen to her husband. The Auvergnat began to look upon the little swarthy, stunted, copper-colored tailor as the one obstacle in his way, and pondered how to be rid of him. Meanwhile, this growing passion made La Cibot very proud, for she had reached an age when a woman begins to understand that she may grow old. So early one morning she meditatively watched Remonencq as he arranged his odds and ends for sale. She wondered how far his love could go. He came across to her. "Well," he said, "are things going as you wish?" "It is you who makes me uneasy," said La Cibot. "I shall be talked about. The neighbors will see you making sheep's eyes at me." She left the doorway and dived into the Auvergnat's back shop. "What a notion!" said Remonencq. "Come here, I have something to say to you," said La Cibot. "Monsieur Pons' heirs are about to make a stir. They are capable of giving us a lot of trouble. God knows what might come of it if they send the lawyers here to poke their noses into the affair like hunting dogs. I cannot get Monsieur Schmucke to sell a few pictures unless you like me well enough to keep the secret, such a secret. With your head on the block, you must not say where the pictures come from, nor who it was that sold them. When Monsieur Pons is once dead and buried, you understand, nobody will know how many pictures there ought to be. If there are 53 pictures instead of 67, nobody will be any the wiser. Besides, if Monsieur Pons sold them himself while he was alive, nobody can find fault." "No," agreed Remonencq, "it is all one to me, but Monsieur Elie Magus will want receipts in due form." "And you shall have your receipt too, bless your life. Do you suppose that I should write them? No, Monsieur Schmucke will do that. But tell your Jew that he must keep the secret as closely as you do," she continued. "We will be as mute as fishes, that is our business. I myself can read, but I cannot write, and that is why I want a capable wife that has had education like you. I have thought of nothing but earning my bread all my days, and now I wish I had some little Remonencqs. Do leave that Cibot of yours." "Why, here comes your Jew," said the portress. "We can arrange the whole business." Elie Magus came every third day, very early in the morning, to know when he could buy his pictures. "Well, my dear lady," said he, "how are we getting on?" "Has nobody been to speak to you about Monsieur Pons and his gimcracks?" asked La Cibot. "I received a letter from a lawyer," said Elie Magus, "a rascal that seems to me to be trying to work for himself. I don't like people of that sort, so I took no notice of his letter. 3 days afterwards he came to see me and left his card. I told my porter that I am never at home when he calls." "You are a love of a Jew," said La Cibot. Little did she know Elie Magus's prudence. "Well, sonnies, in a few days' time I will bring Monsieur Schmucke to the point of selling you 7 or 8 pictures, 10 at most, but on 2 conditions: absolute secrecy in the first place. Monsieur Schmucke will send for you, sir, is not that so? And Monsieur Remonencq suggested that you might be a purchaser, eh? And come what may, I will not meddle in it for nothing. You are giving 46,000 francs for 4 pictures, are you not?" "So be it," groaned the Jew. "Very good. This is the second condition. You will give me 43,000 francs, and pay 3,000 only to Monsieur Schmucke. Remonencq will buy 4 for 2,000 francs, and hand over the surplus to me. But at the same time, you see, my dear Monsieur Magus, I am going to help you and Remonencq to a splendid bit of business, on condition that the profits are shared among the 3 of us. I will introduce you to that lawyer, as he, no doubt, will come here. You shall make a valuation of Monsieur Pons's things at the prices which you can give for them, so that Monsieur Fraisier may know how much the property is worth, but not until after our sale, you understand." "I understand," said the Jew, "but it takes time to look at the things and value them." "You shall have half a day. But there, that is my affair. Talk it over between yourselves, my boys, and for that matter the business will be settled by the day after tomorrow. I will go round to speak to this Fraisier, for Dr. Poulain tells him everything that goes on in the house, and it is a great bother to keep that scarecrow quiet." La Cibot met Fraisier halfway between the Rue de la Perle and the Rue de Normandie. So impatient was he to know the elements of the case, to use his own expression, that he was coming to see her. "I say, I was going to you," said she. Fraisier grumbled because Elie Magus had refused to see him, but La Cibot extinguished the spark of distrust that gleamed in the lawyer's eyes by informing him that Elie Magus had returned from a journey, and that she would arrange for an interview in Pons's rooms, and for the valuation of the property, for the day after tomorrow at latest. "Deal frankly with me," returned Fraisier. "It is more than probable that I shall act for Monsieur Pons's next of kin. In that case, I shall be even better able to serve you." The words were spoken so dryly that La Cibot quaked. This starving limb of the law was sure to maneuver on his side, as she herself was doing. She resolved forthwith to hurry on the sale of the pictures. La Cibot was right. The doctor and lawyer had clubbed together to buy a new suit of clothes in which Fraisier could decently present himself before Madame la Présidente Camusot de Marville. Indeed, if the clothes had been ready, the interview would have taken place sooner, for the fate of the couple hung upon its issues. Fraisier left Madame Cibot and went to try on his new clothes. He found them waiting for him, went home, adjusted his new wig, and towards 10 o'clock that morning set out in a carriage from a livery stable for the Rue de Hanovre, hoping for an audience. In his white tie, yellow gloves, and new wig, redolent of eau de Portugal, he looked something like a poisonous essence kept in a cut-glass bottle, seeming but the more deadly because everything about it is daintily neat, from the stopper covered with white kid to the label and the thread. His peremptory manner, the eruption on his blotched countenance, the green eyes, and a malignant something about him, all these things struck the beholder with the same sense of surprise as storm clouds in a blue sky. If in his private office, as he showed himself to La Cibot, he was the common knife that a murderer catches up for his crime, now, at the Présidente's door, he was the daintily wrought dagger which a woman sets among the ornaments on her what-not. End of chapter 20.